What's up guys, my name is Sebastian. I'm a registered nutritionist and dietitian, and welcome to another episode of Nutrition Eats, where we break down nutrition information and eat. Our goal in this episode is to help you learn your nutrition recommendations for any specific health concerns and change it into everyday habits and meals. For today's episode, we're gonna do acid reflux, so if you're ready, let's get into it. What is acid reflux? But before we get to that, I have to first give you a little bit of a description of your digestive system, because we're gonna need that for this description. So your digestive system is basically everything that digests and absorbs nutrients from the food that you eat. It starts here in your mouth, or the oral cavity. And then it opens up with your pharynx and larynx, the larynx opening to your lungs, and then the pharynx to your esophagus. And the esophagus is this muscular tube that connects your oral cavity or your mouth to your stomach. Your stomach is over here in the upper left quadrant. Right there, they say it's like a J-shaped and can take up to like 4 liters of food. The stomach now connects to your small intestines. It goes around there and connects to your large intestine, which then goes up into your booty hole. Basically, your digestive system is this long tube that connects your mouth to your butt. Yeah, that is your digestive system. Anyways, why did we get to that? Because when we talk about acid reflux, we talk about what happens, and that is the buildup of acid and gastric contents in the stomach that often backflows up to the esophagus, sometimes reaching the throat and the mouth. And that's what most people struggle with or feel pain with, and it's kind of uncomfortable. Generally, anyone can experience acid reflux. You had a big meal, you had fatty food, and then you start to burp and belch. But if you experience chronic acid reflux, then that is called GERD, or gastroesophageal reflux disorder. So it's very important to note that if you suffer from chronic acid reflux, do check with your physician to see if there is something else that needs to be addressed. So what happens with GERD? When you have GERD, the lower esophageal sphincter, or the opening from your esophagus to your stomach, is weakened. So it kind of just opens a little bit here and there. So when there's a buildup of the acid and stomach contents, it's easier for it to backflow. And that heartburn that you feel is the backflow of the acid. Let's tap into more of what acid reflux and GERD feels like. So it usually feels like heartburn, like they say this like acid feeling in your chest or in your throat, and sometimes also in your stomach, like that gurgling acid feeling is there. It can also feel like a burning sensation in the throat, and that's why some people who have GERD or chronic acid reflux can have a hoarse voice, because their voice starts to get impacted because of the acid. Another thing you can often feel is constant belching and burping. That's something I struggle with. You can see a lot of other videos of me burping here and there. Excuse me. Bloating tends to be a little bit of an issue, as well as indigestion when it comes to acid reflux. How do I know if I have GERD? Like, do I just have to think, oh, I have acid reflux for so long, does that mean it's automatically GERD? So there's not really any gold standard for diagnosing, but generally if you suffer from chronic acid reflux, then you can get clinically diagnosed by your physician to see if there are any other symptoms that match GERD. Usually it can be considered GERD when you have acid reflux for longer than 2 weeks. And then you can go on medication or any other specific changes that might be needed. You said that acid reflux kind of happens for everybody, so is it like no problem, it's all good, it's okay to have it? Here's the thing. Chronic acid reflux or constantly having acid reflux can have complications. And most of that happens because acid shouldn't be going up to here and everywhere else. So sometimes when acid is constantly present in your esophagus, you can develop Barrett's esophagus, which is a thickened lining of the esophagus, which in rare cases can also become cancerous. You can also develop chronic cough, asthma, and also dental erosion, because the acid should not be in that area. How do we manage it? Of course, there's exercise, stress management, lifestyle factors, and medication. But today we're gonna dive into the nutritional management for acid reflux. By the way, do take note that just because we do these nutritional changes doesn't mean you're automatically going to feel changes in your acid reflux. This does take time. Gotta get used to it. It needs time to adjust to the things that you're doing. So be patient and try to understand yourself. Number 1, small frequent meals. What is often going to cause the acid to get triggered? Large meals or skipping meals. That's why eating every 2 to 3 hours of small frequent feeding can be very helpful for those with acid reflux. As much as possible, please don't skip your meals. Number 2, eat slowly. If you eat really fast and you eat a lot, most of the time that buildup in your stomach can also cause a backflow. So it's very important to take your time as you eat. Number 3, find your trigger foods. It's important to note that everybody's trigger foods differ, but the most common trigger foods that we usually have is high-fat foods, caffeine, chocolate, onions, peppermint, carbonated beverages, alcohol, and citrus fruits, as well as tomatoes. Once you find out what your trigger food is, you can now kind of see how much you can have, what you can pair it with, and also when you can have it. For example, carbonated drinks or citrus fruits. Some people get really triggered by those, but others don't. So if you find yourself getting triggered by it, you can manage the amount before it causes any major acid stressor, and you can also figure out when you can have it. For example, after the meal instead of before, or what you can have it with that can help buffer the acid. Number 4, have a balanced diet. There is no magic diet or specific diet for those with GERD. It's really just about learning about yourself, figuring out what affects you, and timing it well. So generally, we still recommend that you have fruits, veggies, protein, your carbohydrates, and your healthy fats in your diet. Nothing majorly restricted, but just things to be mindful of. And my last tip, number 5, lifestyle management. A lot of other things aside from what you eat can also impact acid reflux. Like if you're constantly stressed and you have major anxiousness, that can trigger some acid reflux. If you have a tendency to sleep right after you eat, or work out right after you eat, or wear tight clothes, those are other things that can also aggravate acid reflux. So do take note of those. Again, everybody differs, but these are some tips that can hopefully help you manage your acid better. Okay, with that, let's start some cooking. Let's boil our potatoes. Okay, now we're gonna do our veggies. Please don't peel yourself. I have done that too many times. We're doing, oh my gosh, I did it. Okay, no, it's okay. Just a nail. See how I have no system to cut my veggies? I just cut them as you like. So our first question is, are there any restrictions for any specific vegetables for acid reflux? So like we mentioned a while ago, it really depends on the person. If you find you have some trigger vegetables, then that will definitely be something you want to stay away from. Also, sometimes your very high fiber veggies, just because they do create a little bit more gas, can also aggravate your acid reflux. But it really depends on the person. And now we got our broccoli. So for example, you have broccoli here, which is often a gas former, or it likes to make some gas in your stomach. It could aggravate somebody with acid reflux, so it could definitely be something you can switch out for another veggie. Maybe some eggplants, some bell pepper. Again, it depends on you. So onions are actually one of those kind of big trigger foods for some people, so definitely do check if it triggers you or not before you add it in. It's more of a flavor component and a fiber component, so it's not necessarily required in this recipe, but it does bump up the fun roasted veggie life. We always want to have veggies whenever we can because veggies are a great source of fiber, and even with those with acid reflux, you still need a balanced diet. Now we have our veggies. I'm gonna put it in a pan and then we're gonna toss it with some oil and some salt. So you're probably asking, oil? I thought you said fatty foods was something that acid reflux would get aggravated by. That's why we're just putting a little bit, and it's not too fatty. Plus, this is also an unsaturated fat, which is still very beneficial for health in general. Also, we're using a vitamin A rich veggie, which is your carrots, and you actually need some fats to help you absorb that. Just nice and mix it up there so everything has flavor. Okay, so now we're going to chop our chicken for protein, and we're using a chicken breast because you want a lower fat option or a less fatty cut, especially since fatty foods can really aggravate the acid. You can also opt to actually remove the skin because this has a tendency to have most of the fatty parts as well. We have another common question, which is how can I enjoy my coffee? I love coffee. Like most trigger foods, you have to test it out. You have to see how much of it before it aggravates your acid, and you also have to see what you can pair it with to help lessen the impact. For example, maybe having coffee first thing in the morning is what is triggering your acid reflux, or maybe it's the high-fat milk that you're adding in with your coffee as well, so definitely check that out. The creamer you put. For example, I love carbonated drinks. Like, I could drink carbonated drinks all day, but I have acid reflux and I can only take one sip before my whole body starts to hate me. So it definitely does take a lot of trial and error and understanding yourself. So now we're gonna pop it into the oven, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Check it every once in a while to see until it's cooked. But as we wait for it, let's make our mashed potatoes. So I've got the potatoes over here, peeled and boiled. Now that it's a little bit mashed, we are going to be adding some Greek yogurt. Why Greek yogurt? Because oftentimes heavy cream can be an option that will aggravate somebody who has acid reflux. Plus, we love probiotics that will really help our gut, so you can definitely work with Greek yogurt. But this is just optional, just so that we have like a much more smoother mashed potato. Then I'm also gonna put some salt and some pepper. So we have another question here, which is what are the food items that would not trigger acid reflux? Pretty much the opposite of the trigger foods that we mentioned a while ago. But again, it really depends. That's why a lot of acid reflux nutrition is very individualized and depends on the person. Like, for example, me. Citrus fruits usually triggers people who have acid reflux, but not me, because when I have citrus fruits, it's okay. Also, sometimes you just have to pair your trigger foods with non-trigger foods so that you have kind of like a buffer in a sense. Like, instead of having your orange first in your meal, have first maybe your toast with eggs and then the orange at the end. So does the order of eating food items affect acid reflux? It depends, but most of the time it can really help. I think that looks good. Let's do our gravy. Most of the time, people who have acid reflux are afraid of sauces because most sauces are really high fat and that can really aggravate your acid reflux. That's why we're gonna try to make a little bit of a lighter gravy. So another common question that we often get is, what are the dairy recommendations for those with acid reflux? Because like we mentioned, dairy is often a trigger food, or milk in general, you know, it's a bit of a trigger food. So honestly, it would depend on you, because for me, I actually don't mind your regular milk, but oftentimes low fat is more helpful because it creates actually a buffer in the stomach. But you can also do soy milk, almond milk, oat milk, whichever one you feel less aggravates you. Oh, she's so thick. I think it's too thick. We're gonna turn it off. Okay, salt, pepper. So what if I just got acid reflux? What if I just found out? How do I know what my triggers are? So the important thing to do is create a logbook. It can be up to you how you want to do it. If you're very type A, you can download an app. But what I usually do is I write down the food that I eat and then I write down what I feel that day and even the day after. Because sometimes even on the day that you eat it, you're all good, you're all fine. But then the next day, acid attack, acid attack, acid attack. Don't forget our thick gravy. And there you go, you have a balanced dish here. It can be very helpful for those with acid reflux or anyone in general. Just to have fun a little bit with your meals. You don't have to have the same thing all the time. You can have fun with it so you have more variety and more nutrients. So one of the questions we have is, how can we gain weight with acid reflux? Because, you know, it's hard to eat a lot because it aggravates your acid. How do we pack up those calories to create a surplus so that we can gain weight if we feel like we have to gain some weight? That is where the small, frequent feeding really comes in. The importance of having your snacks spaced out, not missing a snack, because this is the only opportunity you're able to really eat your calories or have your calories in your meals. So what you can do is in those snack or meal times, incorporate more calorie-dense food items. Your nuts and seeds, vegetable oils. If you are okay with some cheeses, you can also definitely play around with that. That way, you can really pump up the calorie intake without feeling like you have to stuff yourself with so much food. So another question we have here is, can I still drink a lot of alcohol with acid reflux? I'm gonna have to give you some bad news. If it's one of your trigger foods, it's definitely gonna be really hard to drink a lot of alcohol with acid reflux. Or you can also just, prepare yourself for what's gonna happen after. So we are just gonna put a little bit of peanut butter in each piece. Why just a little bit? Just because sometimes peanut butter can aggravate acid reflux. So you can actually opt for almond butter because sometimes that can be a lesser stressor. You just really want to have as much unsaturated fats, and then on top like this. You can also do chia seeds, flax seeds. So there we go, your snack. And these are our nutrition eats. So it's time to eat. Okay, I want to start with the main course and then we'll pop off to dessert. Let's start with the veggies and some gravy. We'll try with the mashed potatoes. The gravy is like really putting everything together. It's like I would just eat the gravy on its own. But we want to have more nutrients, of course. of course. So let's try the chicken. I did good. Let's pat myself on the back. Yeah. That was a really yummy main course. Let's tap into our snacky here. So I'm gonna get this one. This one has like the most peanut butter, so obviously it's this one. It's so simple, but flavor, and you have texture. Definitely great for a snack or a dessert, and definitely acid friendly. And those are our meals for the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed them, and I hope you had fun, learned a few things you want to try in the kitchen. As we mentioned, acid reflux is something that everybody kind of experiences, but if you feel like you are experiencing chronic acid reflux, definitely check with your physician. And do check out your trigger foods. Make sure you're having frequent snacks and meals as well so that you can manage it as best you can. If you guys like this episode, then don't forget to comment below if you want any other nutrition information. If you have any other health concerns. That's why we made more episodes, because we got a lot of input and influx of asking queries for people who want to know about their own health conditions, and we can get to yours in the next episode. Hopefully we'll see you guys there. Till the next one, bye!